Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethos Online. This is a place where we can be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. And so, as a reminder, whether you're watching from your couch, from while you're driving, be careful while you're driving, no matter where you are, please continue following along, subscribe, hit that little bell. Every time we have a new episode, you'll be informed. And as always, if you'd like to continue donating, we have the link right below. Please continue donating, support us, walk with us in this journey. It's been so much fun. So we have been moving through this series all about the Sermon on the Mount. And again, this has been such a fun one. I've had so many of you respond and say, Tony, I've never thought about the sermon like this before. I've only picked up like little bits and pieces and salt of the earth, blah, 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 don't do this. But you've told me this makes sense to you, and that makes it all worthwhile for me. And some of the conversations we've had that have kind of blended over into some of the podcasts, some of the blogs, it's been so much fun. And so we are getting closer to ending this series, but we've got a couple more, and so continue following along. So one more time, I'm just going to share just brief summation. Sermon on the Mount is a deeper critique into the heart of the law. And any Jewish person who sees this figurehead, this messianic figure, climb up the mountain and begin expanding on Torah immediately connects to Moses. Jesus is the next Moses character, right? He's the next one that's going to lead Israel into a new level of being, a new kind of way of being human. So again, our quote is always, the Sermon on the Mount is a deeper critique into the heart of the law. It reclaims the beauty of living life in harmony. And truthfully, if we lived these rules, these ideas, these applications, we would actually be living a really, really good life, individually and communally. And so this is the idea here. And again, always important to remember our audience. Our audience is a group of people post 70 AD who have just seen their temple destroyed. They're asking the question, is our tribe gone? Has our God left us? And again, the answer over and over again from Jesus is, no, it's not lost. It's now taken on the form of you. The temple's gone. You are now the living, walking, breathing temple, and everywhere you go, you have the ability to bring shalom. That's it. Beautiful. So simple, yet we have missed this, haven't we? Yeah, so Jesus is Moses 2.0, and we went through all the happy are you if you do this, this, and this. We call those the blessings. And so today we're going to talk about an interesting one. And it's one that I think many times we love to quote it, but we don't always understand it. And so I'm going to read to you Matthew 5:38 through 41. And it's kind of a big chunk, but there's a lot of depth to it. And I think once you get it, once you connect it, it's like, oh, this was so simple. How did I miss it? So I'll just share with you, and I'll read it to you right now. Here we go. You heard that it was said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. So again, notice that. Jesus is doing what rabbis do. He's quoting from the past, and he's saying, you've heard it said this way. I say this. That's what a traditional rabbi would do. Expand on Torah. Here's how you live this thing out. So you've heard it said eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the wicked. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. And he who wishes to sue you and take away your inner garment, let him have your outer garment as well. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks of you, and from him who wishes to borrow from you, do not turn away. Now, Jesus is quoting here a quote that Israel essentially adopted from Babylon. There's this thing called Hammurabi's law, right? Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Now, Israel had adapted some of this. And essentially, Jesus is quoting here, and I'll show you here, Deuteronomy 1:13. He's doing what rabbis do, quoting scripture. And that quote, of course, is, if a man inflicts an injury on his fellow citizen, just as he has done, it must be done to him. Notice that it must be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Just as he inflicts an injury on a person, the same injury must be inflicted on him. So notice this. If I do something wrong to you, let me rephrase that. If you do something wrong to me, justice is served when you get the same response. Notice this, it doesn't go over. I don't get to murder you, but it is eye for eye, tooth for tooth. That's how the ancients viewed justice. It was not punishment, it was justice. There's a difference. And again, these are ancient, archaic people. It's where they were at that time. Today, we do things a little differently, don't we? Justice is a little different, or at least it should be, right? Another place you'll find this is Exodus 21, 21 through 27, or 21 verse 27. And if men fight and hit a pregnant woman and her child is born prematurely, again, in this culture, women give birth. And that's kind of where their value comes from. So if you take that from a woman, right? Bad, right? That's a bad community thing you just did. That's an action that hurts community. So, but there is no serious injury. He will surely be punished in accordance with what the woman's husband will put on him, and he will pay what the court decides. But if there is serious injury, then you will give a life for a life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. You get the picture. And if a man strikes the eye of his servant or the eye of his female servant so that he destroys it, he will let him go free for the sake of his eye. Interesting, right? Again, not quite eye for an eye when it's a lower class, but they get their freedom. You see it. And if he knocks out the tooth of his servant or the tooth of his female servant, he will let them go free for the sake of the tooth. You guys see the point here. Again, justice then, it was not punishment. It was essentially, you've done this, so you deserve the same back. It's how we keep shalom. It's how they kept balance. You see it? And so it's interesting. One commentator, I love this, he says this, and I'm just going to read it to you because I find it really interesting and compelling. He says this: one must understand that this instruction about eye for an eye delineates the just punishment and retaliation of an offended party. If such a case were to go before the judges, this mishap, this ruling, right? This is the ruling for the case, would be the just sentence to the offender. So again, if someone did me wrong, it would be very easy for me to turn around and in my anger do something worse. And for Israel, what they're finding is if it keeps doing this, if I get mad at you, you do something bad to me, I do something worse, you're going to turn around and you're not going to do the same. You're going to do worse until what happens is violence escalates. And now there are victims upon victims upon victims. And we know from history that does not work, does it? Yeah, one person has a bomb. Well, this group needs 2 bombs. And before you know it, you're at World War IV, right? Escalating violence never brings shalom. And so the idea here is, how do we bring about justice? How do we stop the escalation of violence? And so for, again, them, the idea was someone does something to you, they should have the exact same thing done to them, or at least that is on the table. Now, here's the interesting thing. Read along with me. Note that the mishap to give a life for life, eye for eye, marks the limit of retaliation. That is the amount, that's the most you can do to someone who has hurt you. You can do the exact same thing they did to you, but only that. You cannot go further. Do you see it? Yeah. But the one offended, watch this now, the one offended is not required to take his case to the judges. You don't have to exact that kind of justice. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. This is what the Messiah is alluding to. The offended party may choose to turn the other cheek, which is to say, forgive the offender. In such a case, mercy becomes the overriding factor, as the wronged brother chooses to have compassion on the offender and forgive him. It shifts things, doesn't it? Again, back then, I'll recap. If someone hurts you, you could, by law, hurt them exactly the same, but nothing more. And if that's the justice you want to enact, you can. But Israel was moving away from that even. They were beginning to understand that when you choose to do this, and you choose to go a little bit further, you escalate the violence. And before you know it, you're at war and you've created victims. And so the idea here is we want to seek justice. And justice is something bigger and bigger than punishment, isn't it? So I want you to think about this. What if justice was found in how merciful we are rather than the punishment we exacted? Think about that for just a minute. Think about if that's how our country responded. If that's how we responded as a family, if that's how you responded to the person who they just hit your car, right? They weren't looking, they were texting, and they just destroyed your car. What if justice was found in how merciful we are rather than the punishment we exacted? We are in a sue-happy country. We're always looking for ways to make an extra buck, to take someone to court for everything they have. But what if we said, mercy is the rule I'm choosing to follow? I don't need to have eye for eye. I can actually find justice in a deeper way. What if that's the way our country and our own individual lives ran? What if mercy was the thing that brought about justice? Beautiful, right? I want to share with you a story. It always gets me a little emotional because it's so beautiful. And so I'm going to share with you a real life story. Her name was Mary Johnson. And Mary Johnson, her son was at a bar, and he was with all of his friends. And they were doing what boys do. They were playing pool. They were doing their thing. They were drinking. And a group of guys come in. And the one guy's name was Oshia Israel. And of course, these two group of guys, they kind of had to, they had to strut around a little bit. They had to show the other group that we're here. And one thing led to another. And before you know it, Oshia shoots Mary's son right there in cold blood. Murders him. And for what, right? To show that he has more power than him. Again, it was stupid. A dumb action. An action that Oshia will later say, it was stupid. I don't know why I did it. But he did it. He murdered this woman's son for nothing. And the actions that resulted were so painful for her. She lost her son in an evil action, an unjust action. Now, again, in our culture, or, in an ancient culture, he should be murdered too, right? And I think in many cases, you will hear people talk about, you'll hear them talk like that today. Well, he murdered him, so he should fry, right? Lethal injection. We should kill this kid. This kid needs punishment. And really what we're saying is that we need revenge. We need to know that the law is going to take care of these people, right? And when I say take care, punish, right? And so typically this is the response you would hear, but not for Mary. I want to read you some quotes that Mary said. Because again, Mary decided, I'm going to go to that jail. I'm going to confront Oshia. I'm going to confront this man that murdered my son. Because I know deep down, if I don't do that, the pain is never going to go away. And so she went, she'd never been to prison before. She went to prison and she met him face to face. And here's a quote from her about that experience. She says this, never having been to a prison before, I was so scared when we got there and wanted to turn back, which makes sense, right? But when Oshia came into the room, I shook hands with him. Notice that instead of punching him in the face, instead of yelling, instead of keeping her distance, being cold, she actually reaches out and she touches the hand of the man that murdered her son. And it doesn't just end there. It continues, I don't know you and you don't know me. You didn't know my son and he didn't know you. So we need to lay down a foundation and get to know one another. Right? This woman is a saint. We talked for 2 hours during which he admitted what he'd done. 2 hours she sat and talked to the murderer of her son. She wanted to get to know him. Yeah. She continues, I could see how sorry he was. And at the end of the meeting, for the very first time, I was genuinely able to say, I forgive Oshia. He couldn't believe how I could do this, and he asked if he could hug me. If he could hug me. When he left the room, I bent over saying this. I've just hugged the man who'd murdered my son. Then as I got up, and oh, it's so good. As I got up, I felt something rising from the soles of my feet and leaving me. What a great picture, right? I felt something rising from the soles of my feet and leaving me. From that day on, I haven't felt any hatred, animosity, or anger. It was over. It was over. For Mary, she could easily have gotten justice how the ancients got it. But what she did is she was choosing to find justice through mercy. And that kind of mercy, that kind of justice leaves you feeling exactly like she said, free, like you're walking on air. The story doesn't end there. It's even more beautiful. Later on March 2010, she said, we gave Oshia a welcome home party organized by my organization and some Catholic nuns from the hood. Even some ex-gang members from Chicago drove down to witness what was happening. Because that's what happens when mercy takes place. People want to see it. We are drawn to it. Yes, of course, we're drawn to the violence and all of those things because it's kind of shock value. It's what the media loves to give us. But when acts of mercy take place, I would argue that's a stronger thing. It's a stronger pull. And it pulls these people in. And when Oshia told me he wanted to share his story publicly with me so that he could help others, I couldn't believe he wanted to do this. Watch this now. He is my spiritual son. He is my spiritual son. Could you be a better example of mercy? So good, right? I'll read it to you again. This quote, so beautiful what Jesus is saying here. Mercy, let mercy be the thing that brings justice. You heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the wicked. But whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him. And whoever wishes to sue you and take away your inner garment, let him take your outer as well. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks of you, and from him who wishes to borrow from you, do not turn away. Notice this, 3 things. 1, turn the other cheek. And again, in that culture, the right hand is the hand of power. When you hit someone, right, you're hitting them like this. Turn the other cheek, well, how are you going to hit them, right? Not quite going to work. You'd have to use the left hand if you turn the other cheek. The left hand is what you use to wipe your booty. This is the hand that you don't use for anything. If you use this hand to hit someone, it would show weakness. Do you see the point? Jesus is saying by showing mercy, you are taking back power. Yeah, really good. Give your outer garment as well. Think about this. You give them the one garment. Back in that culture, you give them the outer garment, you're naked. And in that culture, if you take away everything someone has and leave them naked, you are the one shamed. Again, Jesus says, by mercy, we take back power. And lastly, go 2 miles. A Roman officer is only allowed to have you carry their sacks for only 1 mile. If you go 2, you're essentially outdoing them. You dishonor the Roman soldier, right? You basically took back power by being merciful to them. So again, we take back power by showing mercy and justice. That's how we do it, Jesus says. And so again, shalom justice, right? It's found in how merciful we are even when we are owed much. When that person hit you with their car, you probably could have sued them for quite a bit. You could have pretended your neck was really badly hurt. Whatever, you could have done a million different things. But what you did is said this. Let's let our insurance companies deal with it. Are you okay? Can you imagine, again, the kind of relief someone gets when they've made a mistake? You don't hold them to the fire. You say, I'm going to show you mercy, because it's the human thing to do. Here's my question to you. How do you treat people who deserve punishment that have wronged you? Because I think oftentimes our true colors come out. When someone has wronged you, how do you treat them? Is the immediate reaction for you punishment? Do you want to get back? Do you want to hurt them? Because if it is, I would argue it's not mercy that's leading your life. It's something else. And if it is something else, maybe it's time to make a change. Maybe it's time to stop and evaluate why you're choosing what you're choosing. Yeah, the hard work. So if I could put this in Jesus' words today, I might say this: be merciful even when you can exact punishment. This is how we take back power. This is how we do it. And so again, how do we do it? We could talk all day about why you should do it, but how do you actually apply this today? Here's a couple ideas. Number one, learn to be patient with people. And again, easier said than done, right? Learn to be patient with people. Be patient with people's quirks. What person, again, in your life has irritating things about them? I know you can probably think of 100 people right now. But again, learn to be patient with them. Ask yourself, challenge yourself. How can I learn to sit with this person, not be frustrated? Those kind of things will lead you, once you can deal with those people who are closest to you, the person that just rammed into your car, that's easy. Patience just naturally comes because you've practiced. Here's another one. Second chance. Learn to give people a second chance. And again, I know in our culture we're very guarded. You blow it once, I'm done, right? But in our culture today, what if we had more people that said, you know what, I'm going to give you a second chance. That first mistake does not define you. I want to give you another chance to do the right thing. Show compassion. Another idea, do good to those who hurt you. And again, don't do good to them just to keep adding the flames, make them feel more guilty and shameful. That's not the point. If someone's hurt you, when you do good things for them, it actually helps your soul all the more. Choose to find ways to help those people. And what you'll find is you'll end up with a friend. And then lastly, be kind. Be kind. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. Be kind to those who offend you. Again, on Facebook, wherever, learn to be kind to people. Let that be your first response to people. Let kindness, not anger, not punishment, not wrath, not those things. Let kindness be the thing that spills from you. And when it does, you won't see an escalation of violence. What you'll see is more and more bridges being built. And again, I think that is the heart of Jesus' message. Again, be merciful even when you can exact punishment, even when you're in the right. And this is how we take back power. This is how we usher in shalom. Beautiful, right? Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. This has been fun. As always, please consider donating to www.ethos-church.org/donate. And if you want to join us in living room conversations, please email me, tonywerfel@gmail.com, and subscribe. Subscribe, share these videos, hit the bell so you know when we're live. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye.